Does childhood sex abuse change who you are forever? Published by Paula Kavanagh on December 29, 2017. Can you ever be healed from the impacts of childhood sex abuse? Or does childhood sex abuse become part of your DNA? It might seem strange to anyone who's not suffered abuse to even ask the question, can you heal from abuse? This is because we live in a society where conditions or ailments can be treated or cured by taking a course of medication. But for those of us who have experienced childhood sex abuse or childhood trauma, it can often feel like it can never be overcome. Even when you think you're doing okay and getting on with things, a major event can throw you to such an extent that you feel your life is falling apart. That is what happened to me when my mother died. My reaction to her death made me look for answers to the questions I have always held about areas of my life I felt were unfixable. I wanted to know why, even after all the work I had done on myself and all the knowledge I had around the various impacts of childhood sex abuse, I still felt there was something missing that stopped me from feeling human. I had always struggled with making lasting connections with people. I always found it strange that I was still incapable of feeling empathy and compassion for people on the news or in horrendous situations. I could not cry or even feel for others at emotional events like funerals, unless I was completely pissed. It was only through a chance conversation with my partner in which he suggested that I should look into attachment disorder that I eventually uncovered the missing answers to my questions. I had only ever heard of attachment disorder in relation to children and separation from a mother, so I never made a connection to the possibility of this being related to me as a victim of abuse. This search sent me down the road to uncover information about how the levels of trauma experienced as a child can impact brain development and prevent connections between different parts of the brain happening. This new information helped me to understand the many conditions and disorders that can develop as a direct result of childhood sex abuse, and even showed me how childhood trauma can and does alter your very DNA. I found information about the changes that occur in brain chemistry and development as a result of overexposure to trauma in early childhood, and how these changes were then linked to long-lasting physical, emotional and mental effects to victims of childhood sex abuse. I made so many connections to my own life, and how I had long suffered from many physical ailments, and in particular pain. I'd accepted this as just part of me. This information led me to seek out other forms of treatments to help overcome these physical problems. I discovered that due to the result of these changes in brain chemistry in the brains of victims of childhood sex abuse, our thinking, feelings and behaviours can be forever altered. This information was so important to me. I always knew I was different than other children growing up. Even then I saw things differently than my peers. I never related to how they felt or even what they were interested in. I always felt different and weird. Armed with this new information, I could see and make connections to how this lack of development in certain parts of my brain impacted how I was in the world, and allowed me to let myself off the hook for something I had no control over. Overexposure to trauma in childhood is found to impact the development of particular parts of the brain that control the intensity of your emotions and help moderate feelings of fear, which are necessary for impulse control. It helps us to not overreact to certain situations with anger driven by fear, and be able to be rational and think things through, which is a critical part of learning. This underdevelopment for me showed up as excessive reactions to even the most mundane tasks. We each wrote about this in Click Click, how in school the level of anxiety were overwhelming for us. For me, it resulted in me inciting myself if any attention was directed at me, and resulted in me growing up with the belief that I was stupid and incapable of doing anything. It is also documented that overexposure to trauma can affect your ability to regulate emotions and moods, to form attachments, and how you respond to drugs. For me, this lack of development manifested in all sorts of conditions and disorders, anything from social anxiety to attachment disorders, to suffering from depression and an over-dependency on alcohol, just so I could engage with others. So what difference does having this information make to survivors of childhood sex abuse? I can honestly say that this information has changed my life. Understanding how my brain development has been impacted allowed me to see the damage that was caused by my abuse. It provides me with answers as to why I think, feel, believe, or behave in a particular way. It stops me judging myself so harshly and from hating myself for something that I had no control over. When we were writing Why Go Back? 7 Steps to Healing from Childhood Sex Abuse, we wanted to put all the information that helped us in one place. We all feel that if we had access to this information, it would have made such a difference in our healing and the length of time it has taken. Our intention is always to help others by sharing our experiences, what worked for us, and how it impacted our lives. If you accept that your very DNA has been altered due to your experience of abuse, you can also accept that knowledge and understanding of just how that occurred will absolutely allow you to find a new way of being in the world. Taking the challenge to journey into your past is not easy, but in my opinion, it's the only way to rid yourself of the damage caused by your abuse. If you want a really easy talk on how your DNA is impacted by childhood trauma, check out the link below of the TED Talk by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, or read the study called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study.
You've been listening to the Kavanagh Sisters blog posts. We hope that these blogs provide helpful information based on our personal views and experiences and encourage conversations about these topics that we cover. You can contact us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or directly at thekavanaghsisters@gmail.com.